Welcome to episode 3 of Elden Ring taking over my channel. I recorded an entire hour of audio, only to feel that it was mediocre at the end. It's a great feeling. That being said, I'm very excited to share with you my top 10 favorite bosses in Elden Ring. This game provides some of the most cinematic boss fights with a level of challenge that rivals that of previous Soulsborne games. So without further ado, my name is Josh, and here are my top 10 favorite bosses in Elden Ring. Thor from RYKARD of Ragnarok. So I'm gonna do something a little bit different with this entry and start off with the things I don't like. First of all, RADAGON of the Golden Order, if you ask me, is way too easy as the final boss of Elden Ring. His attacks are predictable and dodging them doesn't really take much effort. I've practically memorized his attacks at this point. Now, why do I still die? It's because I'm an idiot, and I look more like an idiot when I'm running around chasing the Elden Beast. This boss loves to run away from the player and charge up ridiculously long tracking orbs that last for about 30 seconds. How is that fun? It's not, I'll let you know, it's not fun at all. All the while, he's still attacking, and when you try to counterattack, he swims away. Now don't get me wrong, the Elden Beast has one of the most beautiful arenas and music that I've ever seen, very cinematic. It is a gorgeous experience. However, this doesn't blind me to the two major flaws of this boss. RADAGON is too easy, and the Elden Beast is very annoying. And after all that I've seen, RADAGON and the Elden Beast were a bit of a letdown, not gonna lie. Regardless, I still like this boss fight. RADAGON plays similarly to that of the Soul of Cinder, a humanoid dude who throws lightning at you. Pretty cool. He can also teleport, which explodes, nice, and his hammer produces shockwaves of pure gold. His ultimate attack is smashing the hammer 3 times, leaving a mark of the infamous logo on the ground. It's pretty cool, and it does a lot of damage, so I recommend not getting hit by that. Also, let's not forget that his theme is the main theme of Elden Ring, which that gaming trope, the main theme being the final theme of the entire game, is one of my favorites. Once he's finished, the Elden Beast appears, and again, this boss looks amazing, and the arena is stunning. The music also changes from being epic to rather melancholic, reminiscent of Bloodborne. Usually, if you encounter a large creature, their soundtrack is loud and aggressive, but the Elden Beast is calm and soothing. But when it comes to the final boss of Elden Ring, they had the atmosphere and music down, but lacked in the category of gameplay.
Upon my name as Godfrey, the First Elden Lord.
As the boss, before the final boss, you have to leave a good impression. You can't be as great as the final boss, but you can at least be close to that. Marigo's wet nurse plays it safe from Bloodborne because that fight absolutely sucks, and Gehrman is fantastic. Godfrey, though, is a great appetizer before the finale of Elden Ring. He's the first Elden Lord, as he proudly pronounces from across the arena, and he certainly has the strength to back it up. Although I will say, I wish his tiger did something though, because as it stands, he's just an overly sized man swinging his axe around while his pet kinda chills on his shoulder waiting to be murdered. However, entering the second phase is a whole different beast. Quite literally. He kills Siraj, takes off his clothes, very sexy, and now fights as Horalo, which I thought was pronounced Horrocks Locks, but excuse me with my dumb pronunciations. Not only is he the first Elden Lord, he's also the first WWE wrestler because that's exactly how he fights. And I kinda dig it. What really stands out about his fight is the dichotomy of Godfrey. He starts off as the Elden Lord, but when things get real, he reverts back to what he once was. A brave, ruthless warrior. I like to think of it as a rite of passage. You are so strong that Horalo wants to fight you with his full strength and real identity. And strength he does have. He pile-drived me harder into the ground than Raccoon did Vegeta. That really left a huge impression on me. And my skull. His combos are fast, making each dodge count, otherwise you'll get embarrassed on live pay-per-view. Although I have to say, I got really good at finding openings within this fight, and I love how he fights with his bare fists. There's something oddly satisfying seeing a large man tantrum around flinging his meaty punchers as a way of attacking. I don't know, I really like it. He even says you deserve the crown after you defeat him, while everyone else is like, no, don't do it, ah. Too bad he didn't know I was gonna burn the whole world down and become the Lord of Frenzied Flame, but that's behind us now. Let's move on to number 8. If you have an ankle fetish, then you're really going to enjoy the Fire Giant. For the record, I do not have an ankle fetish, but I do love the fire giant's design. Easily my favorite giant design in video games. He has a face on his chest! It's so awesome. He even has like little ears. It does raise a couple of questions though, such as does he eat from his face mouth or chest mouth? Or like if he has snot, does he blow his chest nose or like actual nose? I don't know. Jokes aside though, I know hacking at his heel may be a bit boring for some, but he's quite mobile, so it becomes more like a cat and mouse situation. This is all dandy, but nothing could have prepared me for the second phase when I broke his leg. That's gotta hurt. I'm so sorry. Easily one of my favorite cutscenes in the game. When that third eye opened up, I knew for sure that I was playing a FromSoft game. So now the fight becomes a very unique interaction with a giant, because beforehand, fighting a giant was simplified to hacking at their heels the entire time. He also becomes more mobile, rolling around, and more comfortable using his fire capabilities. My favorite attack being the one where the fire giant replicates an active volcano, bursting heaps of explosive rocks from his chest. It's so cool, I love it. Between his incredible damage and loss of a weak spot, the second phase feels much longer than the first, even though there's less health, which then becomes a battle of stamina. Seriously, the fire giant is like 3 Dark Eater Medirs stacked on top of one another, specifically in the second phase only. You may not enjoy this fight, but I do, and his design is one of my favorites in the entire game. When I picture a sorcery boss, I picture Sir Gideon Ofnir, the all-knowing! You know, somebody who spams unlimited spells without ever running out of FP. You know, that fight kinda sucks. Now, RENNALA of the Full Moon is on a completely different side of the spectrum, and I love her fight. Easy does not always mean bad, and as you can tell, my greatsword did some hefty damage, considering a robe is not exactly the best line of defense. Regardless, I had a lot of fun, especially when you use the final boss's weapon, the Sacred Relic Sword. I just killed half the academy. First phase is nothing that needs a mention, you know, it's just kind of like a little gimmick thing here and there, kill the ladies, you know, fight RENNALA, things like that. But her second phase, fighting a sorcery master on top of a vast lake with a huge full moon in the background is gorgeous. Top 10 boss arenas if you ask me. She's still not the most difficult boss, but her attacks are very pretty, like her miniature moon. I love that attack. Compared to other bosses, she's rather unique. Other bosses favor brute strength or close-ranged combat, but RENNALA is more long-ranged, and that's what speaks out to me the most. You don't see many sorcery bosses, that's essentially what I'm trying to say. Let's not forget that RENNALA is the mother of 3 demigods, Ranni, Praetor RYKARD, and RADAHN. So not only is she a cool sorcery lady, but plays an important role within the story. She may be easy, but her lore, atmosphere, and uniqueness makes up for that tenfold.
Graceless, tarnished. What is thy business with these thrones?
So before Morgott, the Omen King, I thought Elden Ring was a bit too easy. Not gonna lie. The bosses were difficult, but nothing a couple of attempts couldn't handle. Then I got to Morgott, and was absolutely shocked that I beat him on my second try. No joke. Second playthrough, he was much more difficult, and I started to appreciate his fight a lot more. He's comparable to the Nameless King, you know, long combos that start and end in different ways, so deciphering when his combos will end is quite difficult. His ability to conjure up weapons is an amazing concept, which was executed greatly. FYI, this is my favorite move, the Swords of Revealing Light. Just thought I would throw that out there. I'm a big Yu-Gi-Oh fan, by the way. You would think a boss that could use whatever weapon he wants would be annoying, but not really. He's a fair but fun encounter. Second phase starts with Morgott throwing up all over the place, allowing for any move that hits the ground to cause an additional shockwave. It's an added aspect of intensity that doesn't overwhelm the player, rather just keeps them moving. Standing in one place is never a good idea, but this boss stresses that 100 times over. By the way, Morgott, I would have never guessed it. Bad cover-ups aside, he's one of the few bosses that was more difficult, but was really well balanced. He never did too much damage, nor was he too aggressive. Like, it's the right mixture. He may be a snooze fest with my big boy hammers, but I certainly have respect for the King of Omens. Gimmick bosses are either a hit or a miss. Yorm is definitely a miss. The Divine Dragon, a hit. The God-Devouring Serpent, an absolute hit. Picking up the Serpent Hunter for the first time, I expected a Storm Ruler concept, and I was right. Except with a full-on moveset and incredible range. This makes for a cinematic masterpiece, piercing the Serpent from afar and dodging his attacks. It makes for an incredible fight. And that's about it. The Serpent dies and we move on. At least that's what I thought first time playing through. What follows is one of my favorite cutscenes in the game, where a Praetor RYKARD wakes up in the most gruesome fashion, pulling out a sword from the snake's mouth and entering the second phase. RYKARD, Lord of Blasphemy, is now your opponent, using flashy sword swings, spewing the skulls of warriors he's absorbed, and of course, the infamous Skull Storm attack. A common theme among these bosses in Elden Ring is that they're difficult, for sure, but they always have this one attack that pushes them over the edge. RYKARD's attack is the Skull Storm, an unholy rain of fire that tracks the player for a considerable amount of time while RYKARD is still attacking. And the thing is, after fighting him 3 times, I still don't know how to dodge it. I just run around and get lucky. No! Most of the time. Now, ironically, if you didn't know this, if you have enough poise and health, you could theoretically chill in the lava, because RYKARD can't really reach you there. All he can do is jump. Either way, this fight feels like I'm facing the villain of the story, the devil himself within the pits of hell, and it makes for a great arena. It's the perfect cinematic fight because the gimmick of the Storm Ruler mechanic makes the gameplay great. The sheer size of RYKARD makes him intimidating, not to mention his face is really creepy during the gameplay, and his powers that pollute the entire arena make it feel almost a near impossible challenge. Which, it really isn't, it just feels like it is. Props to the voice actor, by the way, Simon Gregor, for an incredible performance. One of the few gimmick fights where I find myself enjoying it more than most of the average bosses. You know what? I think I can parry that. STARSCOURGE RADAHN, arguably the strongest demigod, is one of the most epic characters in my recent gaming memory. Elden Ring encourages you to summon an army plus patches in order to have a fair shot at killing the guy. RADAHN even has an entire festival dedicated to giving him a warrior's death. Like, if I could give the title of the most epic boss in terms of lore and power, it would 100% just be RADAHN. And his fight replicates that. You start a mile away while RADAHN triggers your Dark Souls 3 PTSD with Eldritch arrows, and as you approach closer, he pulls out his swords from absolutely nowhere. Now, RADAHN hits like a truck and has long combos that can easily kill you. As far as I'm concerned, even with all the support, RADAHN is one of the most difficult bosses in the entire game. At least until they patched him. I fought him, after the patch, and wow, they really nerfed him. I wish they didn't do that. Anyways, his arena reminds me of Slave Knight Gale, and as a good rule of thumb for these type of games is this. If the arena is the size of a small area, use it. And good luck, because that boss is going to be very tough. Second phase commences with RADAHN yeeting into the sky, taking the music with him, only to become a gigantic meteor that crashes into the ground. That moment of silence after RADAHN leaves is so clever. It adds to the tension and makes for a unique experience because, usually a cutscene happens or they power up, but RADAHN just leaves. RADAHN uses his gravity powers more during the second phase, with his signature move being his meteors that he will summon and hover over his shoulders until he rides away, flings both of them at high speeds before crashing into the ground, sending a shockwave of electricity. This move killed me so many times until I realized what I needed to do. When he rides away, take cover behind the other side of a sandhill. The meteors will crash there, and all you have to deal with is RADAHN's charge. That's it. It's important to note, by the way, that this boss feels really good fighting both on foot or horseback. So adding more flexibility to a fight like this makes it even more memorable, especially since the horse combat is actually really good. STARSCOURGE RADAHN's approach was a bit different, but definitely one that I enjoyed. There are a lot of references to the Berserk franchise in the Souls series, and even in Elden Ring. I mean, look at the greatsword I was using during my first playthrough. It is a carbon copy of Guts' Dragon Slayer. However, I have never seen a boss that reminded me more of Berserk than Maliketh, the Black Blade. This boss is phenomenal, truly endgame material. What starts off as a seemingly not so important fight against the beast clergyman transforms into the thief that stole the Rune of Death. Cue the plot twist sound effect. That's not it. Anyways, the first phase is pretty brutal, I have to say. The clergyman is incredibly mobile and does not sit still, so I wish luck to all melee builds, including myself. He has this one attack where he swipes his blade 3 times at super speed while creating a gap between himself and you, and it's just the worst. I hate it. Because this boss is really good at creating space. Even with a short-ranged weapon, he always keeps me out while he still has the range to go in. But when Maliketh is revealed in an absolutely amazing cutscene, this is where the difficulty is dialed to an 11. Maliketh is a bit abstract with his movements, and when I say a bit, I mean a lot, which makes tracking his attacks very difficult. I would say that Maliketh has some of the most impressive and unique boss movements in the Soulsborne series. Watching him jump around, landing on his sword, just the way he moves and attacks is very impressive. Because I've never seen anything like that before. You know, as someone who's played Monster Hunter a lot throughout his entire life, you see the same skeletons of different monsters, you know, so they have generally the same attacks. And you can find a couple examples in Soulsborne as well, but Maliketh is completely different. He still retains a beast-like stature and mobility, but has a sword. And he's not like Sif, where the sword's in his mouth, or, you know, not at all. He's a swordsman in a beast's body. It is perfectly executed. By the way, that sword can reduce your maximum HP. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. You get hit by this thing twice, and your health bar is gone pretty much. Not to mention that his anime of 1,000 blades attack constantly sucks away your HP. So not only do you have to deal with Maliketh's mobility and damage, but having your health sucked dry and reduced. That is nuts. I love how Elden Ring introduced so many different boss mechanics, and while they may seem unfair, you just have to be patient. I was very aggressive with Maliketh, which didn't really help. It's when I started to be more decisive that I claimed victory. When I entered the arena for the first time and saw this dual-headed dragon hover silently in the air, I questioned whether or not I made the right choice. Considering I had no way of turning back, I decided to give it a shot. You know, how bad could it be? It was pretty bad. DRAGONLORD PLACIDUSAX is perhaps one of my favorite dragon fights I've experienced in gaming. It is so good. The setting is that of a royal ancient lord, and he challenges you with electrified claw swipes, yellow-tinted fire, and wing slams made of pure stone. Honestly, not that bad. Until he decides to pull a twin princes and literally disappears into the air. And just when you think you're safe, he charges at the player like he's White Fatalis from Monster Hunter. Giving a large dragon like PLACIDUSAX the ability to teleport is both awesome and very dangerous, as you never know where he'll appear next, and he usually follows up with a claw swipe of electricity. Let's not forget that when near death, the DRAGONLORD roars, calling lightning across the entire arena, and before you realize, he's gone again, reappearing, crashing into the ground before shooting concentrated laser beams that will be a guaranteed one-shot. Did I mention how cool this boss is? I also want to point out that his teleportation is not annoying in the slightest. Sure, I lose sight of him sometimes, but he doesn't spam it like the twin cripples. There's also the fact that DRAGONLORD PLACIDUSAX has without question one of the coolest moves in Elden Ring. By the way, PLACIDUSAX is not at his prime. He's missing 3 heads and doesn't look a day over BC. I hope that when the DLC comes out, we get to fight him at full power. That would be incredible. As it stands though, DRAGONLORD PLACIDUSAX is one of the best fights in Elden Ring, and one of the best dragons in gaming history.
I am Malenia, Blade of Miquella. And I have never known defeat.
Malenia, Malenia, Malenia. You've heard about this boss, right? Everyone is going nuts over her insane difficulty, and simps are talking about how they would treat her like a queen. What's gonna happen anyways? The Blade of Miquella is without question one of the toughest bosses in my personal gaming history. Probably the toughest? I don't really know. Like, you thought Maliketh's abilities were kinda bad, just you wait. First of all, Malenia can heal per hit. You think you can hide behind a shield like a coward? Absolutely freaking not. She still heals a considerable amount through each hit that you block, which I find to be a bit too much, but that's just me. Now, besides healing per hit, Malenia has one of the most outrageous moves in the entire Soulsborne series, hands down. A move that a majority of people can agree is a bit too much. The Waterfowl Dance. Malenia hops into the air, and without giving any sort of time to prepare, a flurry of slashes has already cut your character up into tiny bits. It's unexpected, has a fast wind-up, incredible damage, and nearly impossible to dodge. You can run away if you're far enough, but if she doesn't when you're right next to her, that's a failed run. I'm sorry. If you think that's too much, just wait until she reaches the second phase, where she now inflicts Scarlet Rot with every connected hit. By the way, Scarlet Rot is like poison from Dark Souls 2. It's very bad. Now, if you were to ask me my opinion on Malenia after defeating her for the first time, I would have said she's difficult for all the wrong reasons. Her healing, the dance attack, Scarlet Rot, and aggression is all too much. However, after beating her for the second time, I started to understand the Waterfowl Dance. Her healing factor wasn't that big of a deal anymore because I was reaching her second phase without getting hit enough to really matter. And before you know it, I beat her much easier than the first time. And this is exactly why I fell in love with this series. Besides the incredible creature designs, lore, and music, you are faced with incredible challenges that seem to be impossible. But, like every boss in any single video game, they have a weakness, they have a strategy, and they have openings. Understanding Malenia to the max was such a satisfying feeling. The fight against Malenia is an all-out endurance battle, a war of perfection. Trying not to get hit matters so much more in this fight, and is the absolute pinnacle of difficulty in the best way possible. She's balanced behind the fact that she can still get stunned just like any other human-sized boss, and can even get knocked over with certain weapon arts or magic. I mean, yeah. While she may not be the most cinematic, compared to the Dragonlord or the final boss, she's just a lady with a sword. But the difficulty and engagement of her fight is what makes her my #1 favorite boss in Elden Ring. That is until I met Mogh, Lord of Blood.
Welcome, honored guest, to the birthplace of our dynasty.
What lies within the shadows is the birthplace of a demented dynasty, a hierarchy of rulers, all under the control of Mogh, the Lord of Blood, the twin brother of Morgott. I've noticed that if you really want to face the best of the best in Elden Ring, you're gonna need to sidetrack quite a bit, and Mogh is definitely worth the exploration. Perhaps one of the most demented characters in Elden Ring, dare I say all of FromSoft. Mogh kidnapped Miquella, the twin brother of Malenia, forcing him to be Mogh's consort. When he refused, Mogh killed Miquella and attempted to rebirth him as Moghwyn, a god who would replace Queen Marika and rule over the lands between, all under the control of Mogh. Not to mention, Malenia is none the wiser. She has no idea what happened to her twin brother, and it's very sad. His lore is some of my absolute favorite because it is so disturbing. I love this type of backstory. While Morgott was despised by his curse, Mogh thrived in it. By the way, the curse is that of his horns. Already I was extremely pumped to face Mogh, and what I got was an amazing fight. Granted, it's not my favorite fight in the game, but Mogh fights like his lore implies. But his soundtrack is my absolute favorite within the game, by a large margin. Just take a listen. His theme gives the impression of an evil dynasty rising from blood and corruption. It's perfect. When it comes to Mogh's fight, it looks rather simplistic, but in reality, it is quite difficult. He's one of the most difficult fights in the game, if you ask me, mainly because I'm at risk of blood loss 24/7. Piercing into the formless god of blood who blesses those with an ill omen, Mogh uses that same blood to cover the arena in fire, a constant threat of damage and again, blood loss. This becomes more apparent as he starts to summon rings around your character while counting down in Latin. That's never a good sign. The anticipation of what was going to happen frightened me, and before I knew it, I just wasted 3 flasks while Mogh used my blood to gain health and grow wings. Now, if you've done enough exploration, you can actually find a tear that you can drink that will prevent this from doing any damage, although he still gains a massive amount of health. His trident, now covered with blood flames, spreads blood across the entire arena with every single attack, similar to Lady Maria. Before you know it, the entire arena becomes a minefield, forcing you to keep watch over every step. All the while, Mogh is throwing delayed windups and strong attacks. This fight is phenomenal. It doesn't do one thing the best, but the combination of the music, the difficulty, the atmosphere, and all of what makes a good boss fight is here in perfect harmony. And the crazy thing is, he's an optional boss that if left unchecked, may rule the world underneath his Palace of Blood. A phenomenal fight, the perfect soundtrack, with his lore beautifully executed throughout his battle, Mogh, the Lord of Blood, is my true favorite boss in Elden Ring. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching today's video. My voice is leaving me, so I'm going to make this very sweet and short and to the point. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I love making Elden Ring content. It's a lot of fun. This game is phenomenal. But I will start to make content here and there about different games or, gaming discussions soon enough. But if you're enjoying the Elden Ring content, I enjoy making it. But yeah, that's all I have to say. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like and to subscribe for more content like this. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care everyone, and of course, stay safe.